You see, the thing is, Alex Burkhart, I've looked through Hansard.
Just be absolutely clear.
Let me just make this point. I've looked through Hansard. Neither you, nor Kemi Badenoch, nor as far as I can see, actually, on the floor of the House of Commons, a single Conservative MP got up and said Prime Minister should not appoint Peter Mandelson on the basis of his links with Jeffrey Epstein. So if it was so egregious, why did none of your party say anything about it? Why did Kemi Badenoch not say anything about it?
I've just explained to you that a number of senior Conservatives did raise it, but also I know you've got a duty to be balanced. But I think it's a bit much to suggest that this appointment was somehow the Conservative Party's fault.
No, I'm not. No.
That's the moment the mask slips. One clean question. No spin, no escape. If Mandelson's links were so toxic, if everyone supposedly knew how bad this looked, then why did nobody say a word when it actually mattered? Because politics is full of hindsight heroes. Everyone is brave after the scandal. Everyone is outraged after the headlines. But in real time, silence. Total silence. And that tells you everything you need to know about the people running this country. If you want straight, no-nonsense political breakdowns like this, hit subscribe and stay with me, because what comes next only gets worse.
18 months in to this Labour government.
Do you think that the Prime Minister is going to see out the week?
I don't know. I certainly think that the Prime Minister's position is untenable. What we've seen in the past is that often there's a big moment, but then it's the secondary crisis that actually causes the Prime Minister to fall.
So you're calling on him to resign?
I don't think that the Prime Minister's position can stand.
So you think he should resign?
I do. I think he's done something wrong, and I think he's shown that his judgment is at fault. But I know that the Conservative Party doesn't really have the power to get rid of the Prime Minister. No. We don't have a majority in the House of Commons, but it's clear that he has lost the support of a lot of Labour.
Reported that Mandelson may have received up to £55,000 in a severance package from the Foreign Office. Obviously, he wasn't ambassador very long. I mean, 7 months or so. Does that surprise you?
Yeah, I think it's pretty shocking, and that I think most people would think if you've been dismissed under these circumstances, you shouldn't be getting the same sort of severance pay that other people who haven't done anything wrong would get.
And presumably that money is gone now. I mean, Mandelson isn't going to pay it back.
And I think that there's serious questions about why the Foreign Office gave it, why the government signed that off, and also what it's going to try and do to recoup.
I mean, there were lots of ministers, of course, in the Conservative years who were ministers for about 10 minutes and still got a severance package. So I suppose, in a sense, it's simply precedent with that.
There's put this in the context of what has happened here, that Peter Mandelson...
Some of them went in some pretty shady circumstances.
This is on, just to be very clear, this is on an entirely different level. This is a situation in which an international network were trafficking in and forcing girls into child prostitution, and were exchanging information illegally that could change financial markets, right? This is something entirely different.
And we should say and denies knowledge of those things. Kemi Badenoch has said today that the Prime Minister, in her view, knew about the extent of Mandelson's links with Epstein and appointed him anyway.
That's right. And the Prime Minister admitted this. He admitted it in the Commons on Wednesday.
It's a slightly different thing.
I'm sure that there were some things that the Prime Minister didn't know. What he did know was that Mandelson was still taking Epstein's hospitality after Epstein had been sent to prison, and that, as far as most people is concerned, was more than enough. There were other concerns that were also raised about Mandelson with the Prime Minister before the appointment.
And that was
just to run through them because they're important. The first was that Mandelson had been fired twice before, and that this was a major red flag. The second was his business, Global Counsel, which did a lot of work in Russia and China, and the civil servant said this again is a cause for major concern. And then the third thing was his ongoing relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
And this is where it stops being politics and starts being judgment, because none of this was hidden. These weren't rumours whispered on social media. These were documented concerns, official warnings, due diligence reports, fired twice, questionable business links, and still maintaining contact with Epstein after prison. Any one of those issues should set off alarms. Together, it should have killed the appointment instantly, but it didn't. And that's the real scandal, not incompetence choice. Someone looked at that record and said, fine, give him the job. That's not an accident. That's deliberate. And when leadership at the top shows that kind of carelessness, the public stops believing anything they say. Because if this is what passes for standards in government, what else are they waving through behind closed doors? This isn't a one-off mistake. It's a culture. Protect your friends, ignore the warnings, clean it up later, and voters are sick of it.
And clearly you believe the Prime Minister made a serious error of judgment in not taking those things, particularly the Epstein links, under consideration. So therefore, did you or your leader at any point suggest, at the time he was appointed, that Peter Mandelson was not appropriate for that position as a result of his links with Epstein?
So senior Conservatives did. Alicia Kearns, who's on our front bench, she talked about it. Ian Duncan Smith, former leader of the party,
but did Kemi Badenoch ever say anything?
Kemi Badenoch, I don't
did you ever say anything?
Recall. No, but it's I was, I'm Cabinet Office.
You see, the thing is, Alex Burkhart, I've looked through Hansard.
Just be absolutely clear.
Let me just make this point. I've looked through Hansard. Neither you, nor Kemi Badenoch, nor as far as I can see, actually, on the floor of the House of Commons, a single Conservative MP got up and said Prime Minister should not appoint Peter Mandelson on the basis of his links with Jeffrey Epstein. So if it was so egregious, why did none of your party say anything about it? Why did Kemi Badenoch not say anything about it?
I've just explained to you that a number of senior Conservatives did raise it, but also I know you've got a duty to be balanced. But I think it's a bit much to suggest that this appointment was somehow the Conservative Party's fault.
No, I'm not. No.
About the Prime Minister's judgment, and the Prime Minister's judgment is clearly been.
And the argument could be,
he was the person who was given security briefings. He was the person who was given due diligence reports.
But you're not saying what
and we now know that behind the scenes, senior members of his shadow cabinet were also people like people like David Lammy, people like Angela Rayner were telling him not to make this appointment. He went ahead and did it anyway, and it means that now it is blown up. It is on
Alex
him.
Burkhart.
He has to take
the suggestion might be that the goalposts are being moved. Because if it was, what you're saying and what Kemi Badenoch has said this week is that irrespective of what we've learned since, on the basis of what he, and actually everyone knew at the time because it was in the public domain, the fact that, for example, he had continued to stay at Epstein's house and so on, showed a link that made him inappropriate to be ambassador.
Absolutely
if that is the case, why didn't she say so at the time?
Senior Conservatives did raise it.
Why did Kemi Badenoch, if it was so outrageous, why didn't Kemi Badenoch say anything at the time?
Did raise it at the time.
You're using this as politics.
It's not just politics. It's a question of statescraft.
In which case, why didn't she say anything at the time?
Senior Conservatives did raise this at the time. The Prime Minister was in possession of the facts. And he
Hansard, in any of your senior front benches to have mentioned this at the time.
Politicians speak outside of the chamber of the House of Commons, just like I am doing.
I cannot find any reference at the time to Kemi Badenoch in the press or anywhere else saying anything about Jeffrey Epstein and his links with Mandelson.
At the time, the judgment was the Prime Minister's. He was found at fault. He should not have made that appointment. It is now clear that he should not have made that appointment. And, consequently, he must take responsibility for it.
If those links were known at the time and were so disqualifying and the Prime Minister's judgment so bad, you yourself, never mind mentioning Epstein, literally at the time he was appointed or around it, on the 12th of November 2024, just before his appointment, you mentioned Mandelson and quoted him approvingly, saying you'd listened to a podcast with him and he'd been terribly, terribly interesting. It was very significant, you said, on the 5th of March. Lord Mandelson made an intervention with the Lord Speaker on his very podcast on the floor of the Commons.
No, I'm not saying... Sorry, that's on Twitter. So whichever research has given you that has misled. It's not on...
It's in Hansard.
Right, okay, well, maybe I did mention... Sorry, maybe I did mention... I certainly tweeted about it. And what you're talking about a remark that Mandelson made about constitutional reform, in which he shot down Gordon Brown's ludicrous ideas for constitutional reform.
But that shows that Mandelson was not considered beyond the pale. You were talking about him approvingly. You were saying that he was supporting something you believe. I'm just saying that Keir Starmer didn't think he was beyond the pale at that time, and neither did you.
I think we should put this into context, right? There is a big difference between pointing out that someone has made an argument on constitutional reform against Gordon Brown and another to appoint him to the most senior ambassadorial role that the United Kingdom has to offer. So I really think what's happening here is that you are trying to distract from the central question.
No.
Which is that the...
Doesn't matter what I think.
All right,
what
so-
I'm
so
saying
you-
is I'm
okay,
trying to
I don't think it
tease
was
out the
acceptable.
logic
I
of
don't
what
think
Kemi
it was
Badenoch
acceptable.
is saying.
And that's why I think the Prime Minister's position is now untenable.
Kemi
and I think
Badenoch, and that's
that is
why
the
I'm asking you
central
about
question.
it. And that's why I'm asking you about Alex Berger. Let me just...
Okay, but we can run over this again. The fact is, senior Conservatives did raise concerns.
Kemi Badenoch didn't.
Senior Conservatives raised concerns.
Kemi Badenoch is saying the Prime
Conservatives
Minister
raised
knew something.
concerns about Peter Mandelson's appointment at the time. This is what good opposition looks like. Good opposition is about A, raising concerns, B, coming back to those concerns when they're realised, and C, pointing out that the Prime Minister's judgment was entirely at fault and that people in his party now increasingly find that his position is untenable because of what he has done. This is the biggest political crisis in my lifetime, and it comes down to the judgment of the Prime Minister, which has been found wanting.
And what I'm trying to get at is the idea that perhaps there are others' judgment who was also found wanting, i.e. that many other people believed at the time what the Prime Minister believed, knew what the Prime Minister believed, and thought that therefore, nonetheless, that appointment was acceptable. Because don't you think, the point is, I've let you, okay,
sure.
but let me just for the benefit of the listeners, what I'm trying to get at is that perhaps therefore, because of the shock, and my word, what is in those emails is shocking, no one would deny that, but because of the shock of that the goalposts have been moved. Because if Mandelson's appointment was so egregious as a result of the links that were already known, you might think that other people, anyone, any MP, because it's not just Conservative MPs, any Labour MP, any MP would have got up in the House of Commons at the time and said, Prime Minister, this is a mistake. Okay. No one did, including your leader.
Well, a number of senior Conservatives did. But to sort of go into your point a little bit more than we have so far, obviously, there are things that go around in the press and people read them. The difference was that what the Prime Minister had seen was an official report by the Cabinet Office, due diligence report, which had confirmed in the most official terms that what was being said in the press was true.
This wasn't just an interview. It was a stress test for political judgment, and under even the slightest pressure, the whole story collapsed. You saw it. You heard it. You felt the hesitation every single time the questions got direct. Not confidence, not clarity, just deflection, word games, and people scrambling to rewrite history. Suddenly everyone raised concerns. Everyone warned privately. Everyone claims they knew all along. But when the decision actually mattered, when the appointment was made, when the red flags were sitting right there in black and white, nobody acted. Nobody stopped it. Nobody took responsibility. This is a pattern. A bad call gets made, warnings get ignored, the scandal blows up, and then the same tired routine begins blame someone else, move the goalposts, pretend it was all unavoidable. It's cowardice dressed up as politics, because real leadership means saying no when something stinks. Real leadership means protecting standards before the damage is done, not pretending to be outraged after you get caught. And if a Prime Minister can look at links to Epstein, security concerns, repeated warnings, and still wave an appointment through like it's nothing, that isn't bad luck or poor optics, that's catastrophic judgment. This is why trust is gone. Because you can't run a country when the people at the top treat basic integrity like an inconvenience. You watch them dodge. You watch them squirm. You watch them try to talk their way out of something that should never have happened in the first place. So ask yourself, honestly, is this incompetence or cowardice? And would you trust people like this to run the country? If you want more straight, no-nonsense breakdowns like this, like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next one.